Hey soldiers, a lot of the economic strain that's going on in the world today, especially in the West, has to do with the war in Ukraine. And one of the reasons for that is because of the energy sanctions that Russia is placing on the West, specifically Europe. Now, we're going to talk about Vladimir Putin and what he's been up to recently. We're not taking sides in this thing other than to examine it from an economic standpoint. Now, the energy infrastructure, let's talk about that for a minute. That is a term used, at least when I was in industry, that was the term used to describe the four industries that make the world work. They are interdependent industries. You take one out and you pretty much put the brakes on the world or the everyday function of global commerce. Now, the four components are transportation, energy, commerce, and the last one is communications. Now, you can imagine, you take any one of those out. Let's say you take out communications. Okay, if you do that, then you can't prosecute electronic transactions. So the financial structure starts to break down. If you can't pay for energy and transportation, then they break down. If you take power out of the mix, you can't fuel planes, trains, and automobiles. This is the kind of interdependency that we're seeing start to break down. One of the various reasons is because of the war in Ukraine and the sanctions. Now, here lately, Vladimir Putin has called up reservists, and reading this from the Wall Street Journal, it says he hints at nuclear weapons or the use of nuclear weapons. Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered reservists to mobilize and hinted he would consider using nuclear weapons in the conflict, escalating the war in Ukraine following stinging losses on the battlefield and drawing harsh criticism from President Biden and a call for just punishment from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Look, man, this thing is a many-headed hydra. Number one, Putin wouldn't be calling out reservists if things were going swimmingly. I think we can all agree to that. Now, Vladimir Putin is in a very, very unique and dangerous position because these sanctions are placed on some very wealthy and very powerful people in the Soviet Union. We've seen a rash of self-deletions over in Russia, people mysteriously falling out of, 10th-story windows and things like that. I have to believe that part of that may be Putin getting rid of dissenters. Now, look, I'm not speaking out of school. He's known for that sort of thing, okay? And there probably are quite a few dissenters in the ranks when you're dealing with a bunch of pissed-off billionaires that don't have access to their money, their yachts, or the ability to, make more money in the West, okay? So we're dealing with that situation. Once we can get over this hump, you've got to believe that Vladimir Putin, he knows this. He's an intelligence guy, okay? Old school KGB guy. So he's got to understand his position. He understands it perfectly well. He also knows that, where's he going? Who's going to take him in such a way that he would be safe? And who's going to take him in? Who's going to take his family, his friends in, okay? He's looking at the long knives if this thing doesn't go right. So you got to believe that gives him some sort of incentive to quell this thing in a manner that, is not going to lead to something like the use of nuclear weapons. It's a lot of bluster. He's saying these things. I highly doubt that he would do it. He'd be an international pariah, and I don't believe that many in his inner circle would go for that. Now, we've also seen Vladimir Putin expose himself on the international stage. His military is not as formidable as we may have been led to believe previously. And in a situation like that, it is typically best that you just maintain the aura of invincibility or formidability as opposed to do something that proves that what everyone thought is far from the truth, okay? So that's where we are. I've got to believe at this point that if he's mobilizing reservists, he's got to be thinking, let me try to either ramp this thing up so I can end it decisively, okay, or seek some sort of diplomatic solution. Because the bottom line is President Biden and NATO and Germany, the UK, they're going to spend as much money as they need to. They don't care if you freeze to death. They don't care if you are taxed into oblivion. Now, there is some speculation, and I think the president alluded to it himself back when he was a private citizen, right after his stint as vice president, that Ukraine is, some sort of a cash cow or money laundering operation for him, his family, and close friends.
Oh, son of a bitch.
So that could be why there's so much support for Ukraine right now. We'll see what happens next. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you all about is, it flows from that particular issue. Inflation costing average American family $11,500 this year, on average. Now, of course, if you make less money, you're going to see less than $11,500 increase in what your expenditures are. If you make more, you're going to probably see more. It's all relative. Okay, so Nerd Wallet is saying that if you want to maintain the lifestyle you've become accustomed to in previous years, you're going to spend, on average, $11,500 to do it. That's a handsome ransom. What? And I got to believe that that's going to leave people with a very small amount, if anything, to pump up emergency/opportunity accounts and purchase assets. And it's a shame because right now there are a lot of assets that are that could be had for far less than in previous years. We talked about on the channel just the other day the fact that there is a technique you could use with these rising interest rates. As those rates rise, it's going to force property owners, real estate property owners, to moderate their prices because the demand just won't be there. And that creates an opportunity to go in and swoop up some of the housing or real estate in general, whether it be residential or commercial. And then get at some point when rates come down, take advantage of a refinance to lower your expense in the cost of that mortgage. The other thing is a separate analysis from a Joint Economic Committee in Congress estimates that inflation is now costing American households an extra $717 each month, although this is even higher in the states of Colorado, which is $937 a month, Utah $910 a month, and Arizona $833 per month additional on average. And the expenses that we're talking about are nothing grandiose. We're talking about things you need: housing, food. We do have entertainment in there, clothing, transportation, and everything else. Sure, you do need to be entertained. I mean, hey, you're not going to sit around like some, automaton and not enjoy your life, right? Right now, that's just becoming a lot more expensive. All right, the last thing we want to talk about very quickly is, and we covered this in a previous report, the student loan relief. I have encouraged people not to start spending that money. If you're one of these people who's getting a $10,000 relief or the $20,000 on the Pell Grant, don't go hog wild, because as we reported, it is going to face some challenges. This thing is not a fait accompli. Remember, guys, just because the president comes out and says something, very rarely is he able, or she in the future, I guess, able to just unilaterally do that. You hear about executive orders, but an executive order only applies to the executive branch of government, okay? With regard to massive spending outlays, such as what this would be with student loan relief, Congress has to do that. And we said that before, and now we have Mark Kantrowitz. He's saying he's a veteran expert on student loan financial aid, the author of Who Graduates from College, Who Doesn't. He's out there saying that legal challenges to the loan forgiveness program announced by President Joe Biden in August are expected and could present a real obstacle. I think one of the legal obstacles is going to be that cutoff date. So anyone before that date is going to say, hey, well, what about me? Anyone after the date is going to say, hey, what about me? This is pretty arbitrary here, right? How did you guys figure out who was going to apply date-wise and who was not? If the challenges make it to the U.S. Supreme Court, quote, the loan forgiveness is likely to be blocked. At the very least, it will be delayed. President Biden's plan called for $10,000 in student loan forgiveness for people earning up to $125,000, with $10,000 in additional loan relief for borrowers who received Pell Grant while in college. So if you got that money and you were getting ready to go and blow it, or you're a soldier of finance, I know you weren't going to do that. But what you might want to do is just put that over in something that is relatively stable, not too volatile, and have it do some work for you until this whole thing is decided. And, you know, the wheels of justice turn slowly. So you might have a few years before it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court and they quash it, which I think they will do. And at least you have made some money off of that. In the meantime, if you don't have the lump sum, just go ahead and continue to take that money and put it away. Okay, again, in something that's not too crazy or volatile. That way, just continue to pay it like you have been to yourself. Be disciplined so that in 2 years, when they come back and they say, actually, no, we're not going to do that, then you'll have the money to go ahead and, you know, catch yourself up without hurting yourself. Okay, soldiers, now what I want you to do is go check out this video. We're talking about these massive layoffs that are coming down the pike, what you need to consider with regard to that, why they're happening, and what you should seriously think about doing to protect yourself and stay on the road to financial independence. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.